Hey there and welcome, fam. Sup, dogs? This is episode 22 of PigCake Plus News. I thought I'd try to cater to the younger demographic there. Let me know how I did in the comment section. But today we have a riveting episode. It's October 13th. We're already almost halfway through the month. And what have we really done? What have we really done to push the economy forward? To push life forward? Well, me, I'm doing my due diligence. I'm trying to present the news in an entertaining yet educational way, and I'm glad you guys are here. So today the first story is straight out of a cesspool that exists in every city. You might not be aware of it, but most cities contain a swamp, an urban swamp if you would. This one is known as Walmart. So Walmart apparently continues to beef up its portfolio of digital brands, announcing on Friday that it had acquired Bare Necessities, an online retailer of lingerie, swim gear, and other intimate clothing. The lingerie company, apparently founded in 1998, will continue to operate independently outside of Walmart. However, over time, you're going to see that the Bare Necessities products will become available on Walmart.com. Walmart also purchased last week a woman's plus-size clothing brand named Eloquii, which I feel is more catered towards the demographic of people that actually go to Walmart. But they seem to be on the startup hunt. I feel like slowly and surely Walmart is trying to take over the entirety of the retail market. So eventually you're going to be able to go in there and not only get dental work done, but you wouldn't even have to leave because Walmart's probably going to buy apartment space. And where would you work? Walmart. I feel like this is the future. We're just going to have a sustainable ecosystem just based entirely inside of a Walmart. I don't know about you, but there's something disgusting about Walmart and intimates. I feel like most of the items at Walmart are used. That includes the clothing, that includes the underwear. I remember walking into Walmart with the person I was sticking my penis in at the time, and we were walking around thinking, man, everything is so cheap. I forgot why we walked in, but we got a couple stuff and we put it in the cart, and we saw the line pretty much extended to way past some of the aisles, and we both decided to just leave our cart there. I know it was an awful thing, but I feel like that's what Walmart does to you. You know, I would have never done that in a Publix, in a Walgreens, even in a CVS, in a Winn-Dixie, for those of you familiar with that. I would have never done that anywhere else, but in a Walmart, I feel like all rules just leave, you know, all rules leave your body. So we just left a cart there, man. It was a dark time in my life, but you know what? I don't regret it. I don't regret it. I feel like Walmart deserves that sort of treatment. People just walk in there and steal and they don't give a fuck. You could return a box full of bricks and I feel like nobody would ever pay attention to it. So you could just buy a PS4, get some plastic, spray paint it black, put it back in the box and return it, and you would essentially keep that PS4 and get the money back, and nobody would ever care because they have such a huge clientele and a giant store with a bunch of people that do not give a fuck, that you could probably get away with anything there. If you ever need to do a murder, just go to Walmart. Nobody gives a fuck. It's like the Purge. Walmart is exactly like the Purge. I wouldn't worry though. I wouldn't necessarily worry though, because the people that do frequent Walmart are the type to fall prey to type 3 diabetes. So it's fine. It's fine. Eventually diabetes and losing limbs will take them over. But this is kind of an odd acquisition here. Bare Necessities. We'll see if my dystopian vision of Walmart actually ends up coming to life. A new study by Greek researchers found that flavorings in e-cigarettes may harm the lungs by causing inflammation. Experiments conducted on mice showed that even in the short term, the inflammation they caused was similar or worse to conventional cigarettes. Dr. Konstantinos said they observed detrimental effects in the lungs upon e-cigarette vapor exposure in animal models, and it highlights the need for further investigation of safety and toxicity in these rapidly expanding devices worldwide. You know, ordinarily I would trust experiments conducted by doctors. However, Dr. Konstantinos, that seems like a phony name. That seems like a name you would make up if you're trying to trick somebody into thinking that you're a doctor. And I don't want to propagate the stereotype of the Greek man with the wife beater and the gold chain and the grease stain on the stomach portion of the wife beater. But I feel like that's the image that comes to my mind whenever I think of a Greek doctor. The only difference is that they have a greasy lab coat over the actual wife beater itself. And he's saying, yeah, the e-cigarette bad for you. Bad. I don't know if I would trust that. I really don't know if I would trust that. So apparently Public Health England contradicts this by saying that e-cigs are 95% safer than traditional cigarettes, and they suggest smokers should consider switching to vaping in a bid to help them quit. However, they warn that vaping may cause lung disease, keep people hooked on nicotine, or act as a route into smoking for kids. My favorite trend is this whole Juul trend, where parents, angry parents, which is the stereotype that you see on the news, are unaware that these USB looking devices in their kids' room are tools of nicotine addiction. And if you watch the right circle of news, you might have an emphatic news reporter say, kids are having Juul parties where they hang out together and smoke Juuls. And Juuls cater towards young children because they have a mode called party mode, where if you shake it, it gives out rapid lights from the little light source in the fucking thing. So kids are having Juul parties and getting hooked on nicotine, and then coming back and punching babies, uppercutting elderly people. I just think they're retarded, honestly. I think they're retarded. And a couple weeks ago, we had a story about public schools, apparently, that are going to place posters advocating against juuling, advocating against e-cigarette use in the bathrooms of public schools. And apparently they're going to start this initiative where they're going to put posters on the walls of bathrooms in schools. And I'm calling it now. If that ever does happen, people are going to take pictures juuling in front of that bitch, smoking all over that motherfucker. So it doesn't really make much sense. I feel like we're drawing more attention to it. I remember my previous shindig, the boss would give the others ideas of how to sneak shit into like school field trips. So the guy would stand in front of a large group of adolescents and say, you know, back in my day, what people would do is that they would pop the top of Zephyrhills bottles and they would just pour it out, and then they would fill it up with vodka and then just pop the top back up. You don't need to break the seal. You could just get a little screwdriver and pop the top. They'll never find out. Or what they used to do was that they would just hide marijuana and wrap it around meats and wrap it around foods and stuff, so we wouldn't be able to smell it because it's wrapped around layers of meat. And all the kids are just there taking notes like, oh, okay, that's interesting. I'll do that one. I didn't realize that was a possibility. And of course, this guy was not realizing that he was just fueling this idea hamster wheel and all these adolescents. See, what we would do is that back in the day, we would get condoms and fill them up with pills, and then we would tie it up in a knot and then shove it in our asses, so that, guess what? If you frisk me, you could look at my shoes, you could look at my pockets, you're not going to find anything because it's safely in a condom in my ass. And because condoms are designed not to rip, guess what? You're not going to contaminate the pills, and everyone could just take them once they arrive at the venue. You know, thank you, dude. Now you're going to have a dumbass high schooler grab a condom, fill it up with Xanax, and shove it up his ass just to go to Disney. Fucking, ugh. What a fun time that was. Apparently certain news outlets are repeating the same cycle of Halloween stories. This one in particular is mentioning on the fact of which edibles look like candies and what to avoid for your children in Halloween. So this article goes on to warn parents that marijuana-laced gummy bears, brightly colored ecstasy pills, and other street drugs disguised as candy have prompted warnings from authorities heading into Halloween. Concerns follow drug busts involve cannabis-laced shaped like Hello Kitty pills, Homer Simpson and minions from Despicable Me that really are just ecstasy, and mollies that look like Flintstones vitamins. This doesn't happen. This doesn't happen. Back in my day, the fear was the razor blade in the apple or in the Oreos that they would give you, or that, yeah, they would hide pills in your fucking candy. Nobody's gonna give up expensive drugs just to fuck around with a kid. It doesn't make any fucking sense. Why would I pay $5 to $10 a pop for a pill just to put it in a kid's fucking Halloween bag of candy? It doesn't make sense. I'm sure it happens, but not at the rate that parents think they do. Here, apparently, they talk about a 10-year-old boy who was rushed to the hospital after eating a cannabis-laced gummy last year. I mean, that was one incident. I feel like that's just one incident. And the worst part is that you have a minority of incidents that seem to fuel a larger outrage. So you have one incident of a kid with one dumbass wasting a cannabis-laced gummy on a fucking child. And then that becomes the story that everyone repeats. See, look, no, it happened. It happened. Yeah, it happened once. And the guy was retarded. So apparently some of the tips that they have here is kids need to know not to eat their treats until they get home. One way to keep trick-or-treaters from digging in while they're out is to feed them a meal or substantial snack beforehand. That wouldn't work. That wouldn't fucking work. The moment I get a bar or some sort of candy that I would enjoy, I'm gonna shove that in my face. I don't understand this notion of tricking them. Although I think it makes sense. Don't eat unopened candy. I don't understand. That's one of the rules here, but I think that applies to everything. If something you get from a store is unopened, I would much be more reliant to trust that than if I, for example, go to Publix and I buy an open pack of potato chips. You know, I'm not gonna want to eat the open fucking bag of potato chips because obviously somebody has fucked with that bag of potato chips. Whereas if the bag is closed, I know nobody fucked with that bitch, so I could eat it. And the only thing that I'll be doing is becoming a fat motherfucker. So they give the advice here: only eat unopened candies. Yeah, that's obvious. Inspect fruits and homemade goodies for anything suspicious. You know what I'm suspicious of? People that give off fruit in Halloween. That's what I'm fucking suspicious about. If you're giving me an apple, if you're giving me another form of fruit like a pear or something that's enclosed, bananas, I'm very fucking suspicious that you touch kids. There's no other way that you would be giving something like fucking fruit on Halloween as trick-or-treat snacks unless you're a psycho or a child molester. It doesn't make any fucking sense. So apparently this is one of the stories that's coming out. But this Halloween, just use common sense, man. Use common sense. I feel like that's the best advice. No need for outrage. No need for fear. Here's a story out of Mental Floss, which I have some doubts believing. It says, one good reason not to hold in a fart is that it could leak out of your mouth. It says the next time you hold in a fart for fear of being heard by polite company, just remember this: it could leak out of your mouth. University of Newcastle nutrition and dietetics professor, dietetics? It says dietetics. Jesus, I almost said Dianetics, like the fucking Scientology shit. But apparently this professor, Claire Collins, explains that pent-up gas can pass through your gut wall and be reabsorbed into your circulation. It's then released when you exhale, whether you like it or not. I mean, this kind of explains why a lot of people tend to have shit breath that smells like they have literally ingested a piece of feces right before they had a conversation with you. But apparently it says that this is the scientific reason for that. And they have the worst pun here. It says holding it in too long means the buildup of intestinal gas will eventually escape via an uncontrollable fart. In this case, the fart comes out of the wrong end. Talk about potty mouth. I resent that pun. I really do resent that pun. And there are studies apparently conducted by actual real life people about flatulence and farts. So I can imagine a study like a fucking lab with a bunch of people just getting fed beans and shit and broccoli and things that make you just rip ass. And then scientists just there within a couple inches from their assholes with a clipboard and paper and goggles, just waiting to listen. That's a fucking awful test. I have to imagine that everybody getting paid has to be getting paid comfortably. If not, what's the point? You're in there smelling farts and listening to farts all day. So apparently this article is saying to go ahead and let it rip, just like nature intended. But maybe try to find an empty room first. I don't know about you, but that shit stays with you, man. You can't just fart in an empty room and get away with it. I feel like if you fart, it goes with you. So you just go back into the room where everybody is after you just ripped a cheeseburger fart, and people are going to be like, yeah, I could tell you just farted. I smell it. I smell it on you. I always carry cologne on me, by the way, and it's pretty strong cologne, so it's not like it will smell like ass and cologne. So if I ever have the emergency of needing to rip ass, I'll surreptitiously spray cologne all over myself, which is another indication, again, that I might have farted. But at least I'd rather people think that I'm trying to get pussy really hard by drowning in cologne than thinking that I just ripped ass. That might just be me. Some people are more open about the ripping of ass. Not me. I'm hardline when it comes to ripping ass. So a woman at a Florida airport was removed after refusing to get off a Cleveland-bound flight as she was found carrying an emotional support squirrel. So apparently passengers had already boarded Frontier Airlines Flight 1612 at Orlando International Airport on Tuesday night, see what I mean, Northern Florida, when they were told there was a situation and everyone needed to get off of the plane, according to passenger Brandon Nixon. Everyone was a little panicked. You expect the worst when someone says something like that. A lot of people were asking questions. People want to know what was going on. Now this makes sense considering it's a Frontier flight. I don't know if you guys have ever been on Frontier, but it's pretty much the worst budget airline. And yeah, you're going to be able to go to New York for about $50 from Florida. But the problem is that your seats are not going to be adjustable. Number one, there's no sort of amenities in the flight. It's just pretty much a chair in the sky. They barely have air conditioner, I feel. The flight attendants are all people with other jobs, so they're always tired and very rude. I imagine the pilots are either training or possibly just old and don't give a fuck anymore. I mean, they'll get you from one destination to the other, but they're not going to do it in a way that's efficient or with your life in care. They'll just, fly you through. They'll just cut through storms. They don't give a fuck. Their wheels are probably made out of the same wheels in scooters. But apparently here they evacuated the plane because of a squirrel, which is very shocking to me. I feel like they wouldn't necessarily give a shit if there's some sort of wild animal in the flight, because in that case, it's going to cost them more money. They're going to have to, wait longer. They're probably going to have to delay flights, and that's going to end up costing them money. So they would probably usually do this with a squirrel, I feel. So I feel like they would usually not give a shit if there's some sort of animal. But here, Frontier says the passenger has noted in her reservation that she's bringing an emotional support animal with her on the flight, but she didn't indicate it was a squirrel. Rodents, including squirrels, are not one of the emotional support animals allowed on Frontier flights, according to its website. The airline says police were called when the passenger refused to leave the plane. Nixon, as mentioned previously, captured the video of the moment the woman was escorted through the terminal, pumping her fist in the air as he clutched her carry-on bag with the squirrel on her lap. So apparently the passengers boarded the plane 15 minutes later, taking off about 2 hours too late, and arrived at Cleveland Hopkins International Airport at 11:57. Most people apparently didn't give a shit about the delay because they said this is going to be an interesting story to remember for the rest of our lives. All for a squirrel, man. I mean, what's going to happen? The squirrel's going to run amok the airplane and cause calamity. People are going to get up in a fever pitch because a tiny squirrel is walking down the aisle. I'm sure I've seen live chickens in Frontier flights, so it's actually fairly surprising that they would prevent a plane from taking off because of a squirrel. I feel like could you imagine being first class at a Frontier flight? I don't think they have first class at Frontier, but I would love to imagine that first class at Frontier is like economy, budget, in any other normal airliner. It's always an interesting thing to be in an airplane, because it's kind of this weird situation where if the plane somehow comes to a demise, the people that are around you are always kind of the shittiest people. It tends to be that, like, my rule when it comes to flying is the position that my chair is in is the same position I keep it in. I don't move it back. I don't move it forward. I don't want to impede with the person behind me. But that's me. I'm fucking Samaritan of the century. Most of the people that I've been on an airplane with don't abide by that fucking rule. So I've had, my laptop closed on me. I've had my Coke, kind of like the cup with the fucking little seat thing. I've had that kind of almost fall over because somebody just leans back, and people don't give a fuck. If I was president, first thing I would do is immediately arrest anybody who moves back on the chair. And their logic is, if they didn't want me to move it back, then they wouldn't have had the feature. Yeah, but you have to realize, if you lean back, I'm already in an enclosed area. You're just all up in my shit, you fucking inconsiderate asshole. So if I was president, I would definitely have those people probably shot. I wouldn't have them arrested. I would have them shot. Those people deserve slow death. Being on a 2-hour flight and I can't lean forward because a cunt in front of me decided that they wanted to watch Liar Liar comfortably, as opposed to being considerate of other people on the fucking flight. You're not the only ones on the flight, motherfuckers, alright? And also people that stick their feet between the fucking holes. You're disgusting. You're a fucking, you're worse than the person that leans the seat back. I don't know if you've seen this, but they just stick their foot through the hole. So you put your elbow back, you know, to try to at least get a little bit of comfort, and then your elbow touches a fucking toe, whether it's surrounded by a sock or not. It's still disgusting. People are just, ugh. So a restaurant here in New Hampshire is offering free steak tips to anyone with tips on a recent burglary at their location. Police say a man broke in to Tuckaway Tavern in Butchery in Raymond around 1:30 a.m. and stole $25,000. The man was captured on surveillance video entering the closed restaurant with a crowbar, and they say one of their safes was broken into. The restaurant says in a Facebook post that it's offering $2,000 in cash and free steak tips for the duration of the burglar's sentence to anyone who helps police catch the man. That's a big commitment. I feel like for a robbery of that stature that involves a B&E and actually stealing more than $200, that's going to be quite a bit of a sentence. So they're committing here. So if you're from New Hampshire and you want to make an easy $2,000, I'm sure it's a small city to begin with. I feel like that might be just me stereotyping, but it might be one of these cities that looks like there's about 100 people and everyone knows each other. And the burglar is the dude that suddenly comes into town driving a new car, and you're like, you know, he cleans chicken shit from the farm, and now he's coming to town driving a brand new Nissan Altima. That's kind of odd. Hey man, did you rob a restaurant? Yeah man. All right, you're under arrest. Fuck. I feel like that's how that would take place. But apparently if you want to make some $2,000 and some free steak tips. What the fuck are steak tips? Is that like just a part of the steak? You're not even getting the full steak. Let me see. Steak tips. Let me see what a steak tip is. Steak tip. It's like little pieces of steak, apparently. That's what it seems to be. I see a bunch of recipes. Why not just have the whole steak? That's kind of skimping on you, right? It's not like, hey, you get free steak. You get steak tips. That's like offering cow tongue for free. The other day in the grocery store, I saw pig neck. Fucking pig neck. So you could apparently buy pork neck from a fucking place, and God knows do what with it. I can't imagine you're gonna eat it. Maybe you add it to make a stock out of it. Maybe do some fucking voodoo. But if you're eating pork neck, you're an absolute behemoth. So here's a fun addition to the story that I talked about, I think, on the previous episode about San Francisco. Because now, whereas the story mentioned on how San Francisco is becoming the nation's poop capital, they've also developed an app called Snapcrap. Of course, in jest of Snapchat. But the idea for Snapcrap is allowing people to take photographs of feces on the sidewalks and deliver an alert to the city's public works department. The app uses cell phone GPS to track the specific location of the mess and creates a ticket so that users could keep tabs on their complaints. I feel like people are going to use this app. Like, I would personally go outside, take a shit on the street, and then take a picture of it and be like, hey, there's a shit in front of here. Someone needs to go and pick this up, you know? Like, I feel like this might be more incentive for people that are homeless, because some homeless have phones. So if they find out about this app, they'll be like, hey man, I could shit on the street and people come and pick it up. It's like a win-win-win, because the people picking up the shit are getting paid for that. So that's the win on their end. But apparently, yeah, this app is a real thing. That's fucking disgusting. You could send a picture of shit and send it to the government. So the app has been downloaded nearly 1,000 times in less than a week following its launch. San Francisco leader says they've been grappling the problem of shitty streets for years. The city receives roughly 1,300 requests each month for human and animal waste cleanup. That's fucking disgusting. I mean, I gotta tell you, I really am not surprised that it's California that is host to the poop capital of the states. But apparently city officials have taken steps in recent years to combat the persistent problem of human waste, including placing public toilets in 12 neighborhoods, and most recently forming a team of 5 public work staffers dubbed the Poop Patrol, as I mentioned in the last episode, who will begin combing neighborhoods and steam cleaning areas where waste is found. I don't understand this. I feel like public toilets is just gonna exacerbate the problem. Most of these people are obviously homeless drug addicts. They're people that are getting themselves all fucked up, just shitting themselves all over the street. So if you just have public toilets, it's gonna give them a place to do drugs by themselves. I know I might be kind of rushing to judgment here, but it's a weird issue, man. It's a weird thing to try to solve, to try to figure out how to do this. But I feel like, could you imagine the condition of those public toilets? I imagine they would have to build a public toilet that's self-washing. You close it, you press a button, and then it just rinses itself with soap and wax like one of those car fucking washes. Unless you have to hire some sort of behemoth to go in there and clean that shit, knowing that it will just run amok by 1,000 hobos eating just natty ice, just eating natty ice. But we'll see how this goes. I'll have an update. When the next article about poop in California comes out. So that's the news, man. That's the news. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you guys learned something today from the news, the happenings around the world. Mostly weird shit. I know it's kind of biased towards the States, but if anything, it shows you non-United States residents the type of things that are happening here. And don't judge us, all right? I'm sure if I look up specific news from your respected country, I'm going to find some weird shit too. I'm sure if I look up the Glasgow news, you're going to find some stories about fucking a drunk dude trying to fight a pole that he thought was his father, shit like that.
See you again, when I 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 see you again.